This is the XJO, the S&P 200. I've just got this downtrending line here from the last high, picking up that high there, and then we've got another slightly uptrending line picking up the low in 2003 over here to 2009. And I might just zero in on there a little bit. This is the weekly chart. I've just drawn the fibs, taken the fibs from the March 09 low there to this April 10 high here, and we can see just this last week, if I can zoom in on there, that we've had a bit of a bounce off the 61.8%. I'm just sitting above the 50% fib there. And okay, so we'll have a look what's happened in the last couple of weeks or few weeks. And what we've had there, well, firstly we've taken out the low here at what's this, the May flash crash last year. So that's a significant break that we've had there, and we've tried to get back above it, but we've broken back below there again. So that's showing us that it's a bit weak at the moment that way. But anyway, we've had this week here, we've had a high volume coming down in the bottom, and when we see high volume, we know that professional money are increasingly active, and we know they typically buy on about down bars and sell on up bars. So we're just waiting to see what happens with all that. And the next bar we get really high volume as it pushes down lower, and it closes on the high. So we've had buying come in there as they've attempted to support the market. So and we know it's buying, because otherwise how could it close high like that? How could it close higher than the week before? But anyway, that doesn't mean we're long there. We want to see that volume tested now, because even though there's high volume and demand's overcome supply, there's still a lot of supply present in that bar, and we want to see that volume tested. If they're bullish, they'll come back and test that volume on light volume. But anyway, what's happened the next week, it's closed lower, and it's closed lower after attempting to rise through the supply in this first bar here, and it's just closed on its bum there. So that's even though it's on lighter volume, it's still fairly high volume. So that's telling us that the market is still weak at this stage, and it's probably, and we're in a downtrend, and when we're in a downtrend like that, we pay more attention to our weak bars than to our strong bars. So that's a weak bar. That's a weak bar coming down. Well, a bar full of supply, should I say? That bar's full of supply as well, because it's attempted to push through the supply in this bar. It's failed, and so we would expect now that those two bars there will suppress the price. Suppress higher prices somewhat going forward. Do we short there? We've got to be careful shorting, because it doesn't discount the fact that we've got a lot of buying in this bar. There's a lot of demand where demand's overcome supply in this week, but because it's been followed immediately by a weak bar like that, I don't think we can count on that holding before we've seen it testing. And if they are bullish, they'll probably still test down into this bar, down to the low even. And what we want to see is narrow spread, low volume bars to tell us the supply is dried up. Because at the moment, while you've got high supply, high volume like this, all high volume tells you there's supply. That's a problem for higher prices going forward. So we're looking for light volume coming back into this bar to show that the selling's dried up in there, but really at the moment we're still in a downtrend, and it's too, even though we don't want to really we want to be careful shorting there, we don't want to be just assuming that this bar is going to hold now, because we can't really assume that at the moment while there's plenty of supply. See, all this high volume this week, last week and this week tells us there's plenty of supply present in the market, and if there's plenty of supply present in the market, it will probably go lower. If it were to break below this bar, which is quite possible, then we've got the lows here at the March 09, that's at 3100. We've got this uptrending line here from further back around the 3200. But I think we've got to see what happens with this high volume there. If we can see some testing in this on really light volume, then that would be good. But we're still in a downtrend, so so we're actually got to be looking for short trades, I suppose. You had a nice one there. See, no demand as it's retraced up on really light volume, really narrow spread. That's a nice no demand bar there. You could have shorted that in a downtrend. But anyway, at the moment it's still looking weak. From the weekly point of view, I don't see a trade there. On the intraday and on the daily, you probably get some trades, but if we're just going by the weekly, there's no trade long or short there. But you don't really know what's going on, other than it's still looking quite weak. We might just have a look at the daily on this one. So there we go. There on the daily, we've got this downtrend channel there. Well, firstly was this median line here that I've drawn in, and the top line with a channel, but I've just extended that down now that it's crashed an equal amount, so we've got a wider channel there. And we can see if we zoom in here, there's our ultra high volume narrowing. So as the buying starts coming in, closes higher as it pushes down on really high volume, so the buying's coming in, shot up, tested. You probably could have taken a high risk long trade on that one, because it's a low volume testing that volume. Shot up, but it shot up on no demand. That's very light, lightest volume in 3 bars, even though it's still quite high. But anyway, the volume starts cutting out up here. We start getting an up thrust up, and it's like a 2-bar reversal there. And then the Friday was the killer. Bang! It's basically locked in all these buys up here. It's closed on its low on an increased volume, gap down. So that's weak. That's weak. What we're looking for was light volume coming back down into this area, and that's not light volume, that's increased volume. And that'll probably dip down now back to probably even to this lower orange line here. So, but anyway, we always knew that it would have to come back to test the volume in this bar, and it's looked like what it's coming back to do now. The fact that we're now in the bottom half of this, and it's pivoted. It got over the 50% median line here, but it's gapped back down below that. So that's probably going to go back to the bottom of this channel at least. And what we're looking for is these really light volume down bars in this area, followed by price going up, and that will give us an indication that that this might possibly hold, but at the moment we can't assume that it will. Not in a downtrend, especially it seems it's in a accelerated trend now. If we take a trend line from here to there, it's moved very quickly down there. We now got to be very careful and not just assume this is the bottom, because it can very much, especially while there's all this high volume down here, supply going on, it can break. But anyway, we've got something to watch now. Be careful shorting in here, because we've still got to respect the fact that there's buying in that bar. If we were to break down below that and then try and rise up on light volume like these ones here, then and you're still looking for your short trades. In the downtrend, your high probability trades are your short trade, especially if you're at the top of a downtrending channel like this. But anyway, that's the XJO still looking weak, especially Friday was weak on that widespread. And if they are bullish, I think we'll be suppressed in the range of this big bar here, maybe even a bit lower if that's genuine buying and they're wanting to accumulate. I think that might lock us sideways for a while. But if they're bearish, then they want to take it lower, then that can happen as well. So we just don't want to assume that's buying, and then it is buying, but we just don't want to assume it's going to hold. Now we want to see what the chart tells us. So if you just assume that's going to hold and that's the bottom now, then you're not on the lookout for your weak bars that come up, like all these light volume up thrusts. You tend to discount them when actually they could be good opportunities to go short. But anyway, when we come back down in here, we've got to be real careful of how we trade. And yeah, that's all we can say at the moment. It's still looking weak, especially on the weekly, and I think that will possibly keep us suppressed below the 4100 there for a little bit, or it's going to take a lot of effort to get back above that 4100. So we've got to be careful of that. Okay, BHP, and pretty much the same sort of thing as the XJO, of course. Again, you're buying in your Friday, Monday, Tuesday over here. So buying's come in. I've put in this new channel here with a middle line. It's gapped up, but it's a no demand. So it's come back down, but it's lower volume again. So that's a test. A down bar is testing that volume. Now there's a lot less volume where there was before, so you could probably have taken a higher risk entry there if you wanted to go long, but would be counter trend. Next bar does go up, and that would worry you, that next bar, because it's again no demand up thrust type bar, but it actually goes up again after that on increased volume. Any and a no demand you want to see confirmed by a lower close, but price closes lower and higher volume, gaps up over the middle line, but then goes nowhere, and then whack. That's basically locked those buyers in up there. That's pretty nasty. It's actually sitting right on top of this high volume bar here, so it's closed a little bit off its low, but it's sitting right on top of that high volume. We've got now less volume now in an area where we had high volume, so that's good, I guess. But the fact that we've gapped down on higher volume and closed on towards the low is not really what we want to see. So this could possibly, I think this will come testing further into this bar there. I don't think we can just assume that's going to hold. I mean, if it was strong, it wouldn't gap down like it on increased volume and close low. But if we have a look at the weekly, then the same as the XJO, high volume down, buying coming in, but this week we've got a hidden up thrust bar going higher, closing low. It's actually closed lower, and that's weak, and hasn't even been able to get up to back test the trend channel, this uptrending channel it's broken out of. So that's tells us that it's weak still. There is less volume though that we're coming into here, but it's still quite high. So there's still a lot of supply. I think, as I said before, this is all high volume is supply, and supply is the enemy of higher prices. So last bar we started this downtrend, and it's accelerating at the moment. So we pay more attention to our weak bars. This is the weekly. and our last bar was a weak bar. So we can't just assume that this buying here, and there is buying here, is going to hold. We want to see a really low volume, narrow spread down bars to show us there's no selling pressure in that area. So I think this could even go as low as 34 again, and if they're bullish, I think it'll go sideways a bit while they accumulate, but that's a big assumption to make at this stage. It could just as easily, and we do have a downtrend in play, and it's still showing us weakness, so we can't just assume this is going to hold, that this is a bottom yet. There's no long entry here, but it's still going short. If we want to go short, we're still wary that there is buying. There was buying the week before last, so we've got to be careful here. But at the moment it's still looking weak, and until it starts looking strong, I suppose. There's no point trying to make the chart do what you want it to do. If it's looking weak, and if you're in a downtrend, then you've got to take your you've got to be looking for shorts, I suppose. Now there's a good one. There's your supply coming in at April, and it's come down. So we're not shorting yet. Well, we're not chasing it down, but as it's come up and retraced, you've got your no demand bar, really narrow spread up bar, and that you could have shorted there. At the moment, you don't have another short unless it comes back up really on really light volume like that again, because we've got a lot of buying, we've got a lot of selling above, but we've got also buying below, and we're stuck in the middle there. So there's no, we don't have an entry on the weekly chart at this stage, but at the moment it's still looking very weak, just like it's and a lot of supply present. Okay, Commonwealth Bank. This is the daily here, so I've got the downtrending channel here, and it's been in for a little while. Again, let's have a look at the weekly chart. I'll just zoom in to last week. Again, we've got high volume coming down as we've got this downtrending channel top line here. Down it's gone, it's reversed again, it's an up bar, but on high volume, that's really high volume. So it's gone down and bounced up back up, really high volume, but it's an up bar. But there must have been some buying in this bar for it to close higher. There must have been some buying in this bar for it to close on the high, but the next bar is closed bang on the low and down below. So that's actually really weak. And high volume. It's a down bar. The volume's still quite high, so it's a down bar with a narrower spread. So possibly a bit of buying in there. But whether it's buying or selling, there's a lot of selling anyway. Even if you think they're trying to support the market there's still a lot of selling. It's still weak. That's showing that this bar here is actually weak because it's closed higher, even though that's closed on the high. This one's closed low and it's closed on its bum. And we're in a downtrend on the weekly, so that's showing us that it's still weak. That's all we can say about that. Then any low volume bars trying to get back up in, especially if they try and get back to touch this downtrend channel here, then you'd be looking to go short. But anyway, let's see. We've got the low here at 43.29, and it could very well get down there unless there's buying in this narrowing spread down bar. So we've just got to see what happens. So there's a lot of supply present, as with everything at the moment. A lot of supply present. Supply is the enemy of high prices. So we've got to be careful shorting as well, because there is smart money are very active and they're very cunning. And while they're very active, you've got to be very careful. It's really not, you can't just assume nothing. We just see what the chart tells us. And at the moment, I think all it's telling us on the weekly is that there's a lot of activity going on. There's a lot of supply present. So we've got to be very careful whatever we do. Let's just have a look at some support on the weekly going back. Well, we've got those, see they've taken out those low, looks like it's broken the low, tried to get back above those lows and then broken back down below it, so that's pretty weak. That's showing you that it's pretty weak. We've had this ultra high volume bar up here. It's broken down from that, and it looks like it's accelerating, doesn't it? And where's your next one? You got one down here. Oh, look at that, bang! So it's actually gone and tagged that weekly bar there. There's actually a couple there high volume where they're reaccumulating in the past, and it's actually in this area here of congestion as well. So so that looks like a bit of an area where it might find support, but I mean, it's in a down till it's in an uptrend. It's in a downtrend, isn't it? So you've got to pay attention to the fact that it's still weak. But you've got to be cautious of the fact that this is really high volume, and there's buying in it. In this case, there is demand overcoming supply that week. The fact that it's closed lower now shows us it's still weak, but still we don't want to be deciding anything just yet while all this volume is on. We've got to be real careful, especially when this is a down bar and it's narrowing spread, so there's some attempt there to hold this up. Well, we'll have a look at the daily. Let's have a look at the daily and just see what they're doing. So we've got our downtrend there. We've got I've got another downtrend here, sharper downtrend. So it is looking weak, eh? Then we've got all that. This volume comes in here, narrow spread, closes a bit lower next. Volume kicks in then, bang bang. But then the killer for us is that one springs up on really high volume, but it's closed in the middle. So still plenty of supply. That just hasn't been, and then you've got your up thrust, no demand up thrust, trying to get above that, and it just isn't going to get above that because that's full of supply there now, and that's knocked this back. That looked like a test there, really light volume, narrow spread bar. That's what we're looking for, testing this volume. So that's what we're looking for, and saying, okay, that looks really good. What we want to see to confirm that now is the price to go up, and that would have given us probably a bit of a long entry, but we would have been counter trend. They were still in the downtrend, so really, I mean, the safer trade, the long trade isn't the safe trade at the moment, but it would have at least confirmed maybe this could be a possible bottom. But the next bar closed lower on increased volume and gap down, so it's still test-like because it's closed off its low. It's still narrow spread. So, but I think this will push. It'll probably keep pushing into this bar. I think this has to move. So even if they're bullish, I think, like most things, this will have to move sideways to accumulate. I think there's been a lot of supply in these bars, and that will probably trap it in a sideways range a bit. And we can't just assume that this is going to hold, even though there is buying in there. We're still in a downtrend, an accelerating downtrend at that, and until we're in an uptrend, I suppose. So so we're looking for weak bars now to go short, and probably any weak bars going back up into this onto this trend line here with short. Any really light volume, no demand bars. But right at where it is at the moment, I wouldn't be taking a trade on the weekly. The intraday, there'll be plenty of trades on the intraday. Wide spreads, really good. But if you're just gauging by the weekly, we're not backing the truck up just yet. What we really want to see this really high volume down and a really narrow spread. But I don't think I can see an example here. Maybe like this one here, except that was a really light volume one. That was a good test. That moved it up a bit. If we see one really high volume and then one of these really narrow spreads, down bar, then that would be where we start looking to thinking about going long again, because then that tells you they're just buying everything in sight. Whereas at the moment it's moving a bit too easily up and down and high volume, and it's moving too easily either way to say, if this was a narrow spread down bar, then you can say the smart money have backed up the truck as everyone's poured everything into it. But we can't really say that at the moment, especially since this last week has closed weaker. But anyway, that's CBA. Westpac, I mean, it's all the same pretty much. You had our high volume down, it's closed higher on ultra high volume, but it's an up bar. And then we've had last week had a hidden up thrust. We're in a downtrend, and the last bar was down. Tried to go up through the supply and failed and closed lower, close to the low. So it's finished weak at the moment, still weak at the moment. Still plenty of supply, still can go lower. While there's plenty of supply about, it can still go lower. And we can't assume that's the bottom there. If we look at Westpac on the daily, I've had this downtrending channel here for a little while now on Westpac. So there's where our buying came in. Actually, Westpac looks a bit better to me than the rest. Here's a high volume bar here that's once it broke, it tried to get back up to there, and that's resisted the price. But anyway, we've had there was our buying there Friday, Monday closed lower, but narrow spreads. So there's definitely buying in there. Then let's try to go right down here and closed higher. And then that sprung it up, but that bar was full of supply. It's an up bar on ultra high volumes. We've got to be really careful of. But anyway, it's closed. Next bar tried to go up on less volume again. That was a no demand bar. You probably could have shorted that bar there. Next bar gaps up and gaps down, so your short might have got taken out depending where you put your stop. But if you put your stop above the last high there, you would have been right. But you could short that bar right there, no problem, because you got all this in the background. So you got weakness in the background, and you're coming up to this resistance line here as well, close to this resistance line here as well. And it's not going to get through that on light volume. Now the next bar does go up, but it's a trap up move over 2 days. Bang, bang, locking in any recent buyers. Try to go up again on no demand. Then it went down. That looked like a really good test there. But the next bar closed lower, so it's a failed test. And that looks like a trap up move there. That whole week. But we're still closed, we're still above a high volume here. So, I mean, so we're expecting it to come back and test this volume here, but I think that looks, actually on the daily, looks a bit better than everything else, because it's still way above where a high volume is. And there's not as much selling as there was. Oh, well, I suppose there was in this bar and these bars here. There was selling, so you can't really say that at the top there anyway, at the top of this channel. So anyway, what we're looking for is for really light volume down bars, like this narrow spread bar here would be a good one, coming down into this bar, but we want it to then close higher and slightly more volume, and that would be actually a sign of strength then. Whereas if it closed lower the next bar after we see that, then that's just a sign of continued weakness. But we want to see this narrow spread bar down here, and then a higher close the next bar, and that would give us a clue that we're still in a downtrend. We've got to be mindful we're still in a downtrend, so we pay more attention to our weak bars at the top of this channel than we do to the strong bars at the bottom. But that's particularly high volume, so we're watching that. And if we can get out of this downtrend here, then you know, while it's trending down, why buy, eh? Why buy while it's trending down like this? You may as well wait for the trend to change, even if you don't get in the bottom. But you got to think. I mean, if you bought this for $17.88 down here, not that you would. Well, let's say not that you'd buy that bar, but if you did, then your dividends like over 8%. You know, so and some of these prices are just ridiculous. But that doesn't mean that means nothing. If they're selling it, it's going to keep going down. But you'd have to think that at some stage they're going to see the prices attractive and that they could possibly get higher prices for them and take it up. But anyway, what they should do, we're not going to tell the chart what it should do, we're just going to let it tell us what actually is happening. So we're watching for our light volume bars coming back down here to tell us that the supply has dried up in this area, and that would make this area look particularly strong. But at the moment we assume nothing, and we're not shorting. We're not shorting while we're in the scope of this bar here. No way, because that's even if they're bearish, they'll probably whip it around in there to try and get you to get you out of position. So and we still got to respect that that is buying there. That's held that up and moved this up. So we've got to be careful now. And if we're trying to short through here, if it breaks past there and then tries to retest them on these no demand bars, you've got one there, you got one there, you got them up here, and sure, you know, then you short it, but probably not the best place to short it while it's in the middle of where they were buying it last. But anyway, that's Westpac. ANZ is going to sound boring now because it's basically just saying the same thing. On all of them are pretty much the same. ANZ has broken this, had this nice uptrending chat line here that it's broken down, so it's been weak for a little while. I've got this downtrend channel that's been in place for a while, and it's actually accelerating. High volumes come in at the bottom, but last week we have an up thrust, so it's looking weak still, and we can't assume this is a bottom, even though there is buying in that bar. Next bar is actually closed lower and up thrust, like most things. On the daily, it's we've got a downtrend channel, we've got an accelerated downtrend channel here in the purple, and we've had our buying come down here, it's gone up. It's still really high volume bars here, so it's gone nowhere, and then all of a sudden it goes up on no demand. I really like volume bars, and bang, and then it locks you in. That's a down bar, really high volume, closed in the middle and fairly narrow spread, so there could possibly be buying there, especially seeing as it could be that they're trying to support on this buying here. But we don't want to see high volume bars there. We want to see really light volume bars down, really narrow spread bars like that one there. That's a narrow spread bar. We want to see those on top here to tell us there's no selling now. That still tells us, even if they're buying in there, that still tells us there's a lot of supply present, and it's still telling us that it's weak, especially seeing that it couldn't even make the this trend line here, and that's a HR failure basically, which means if it pivots before it should, it usually takes out the previous pivot, whether you call that the gap there, the previous pivot, or even this one. But a lot of the times they do take out, that's the pivot it would take out normally. That doesn't look too good, does it? But still, while we've got our strong bar, or a potentially strong bar, still beneath us, we don't want to be going short there just yet. We can short these at the top here, but we don't want to be shorting once we get into this area where there's been a lot of buying, and there has been a lot of buying there, but at the same time there's been a lot of distributing just after it as well, and then no demands. and then down. So that's still looking weak. You're still in a downtrend, so it's still looking weak. You pay more attention to your weak bars at the top of a downtrend channel than you do to your strong bars at the bottom. And it's in a downtrend until it's in an uptrend. That's all we can say about that. Anyway, that's ANZ, and the last one's National Bank. That's pretty much. This one, is that the weekly? Yep, that's the weekly. I've actually got this high volume bar marked here, that it's breaking where they were accumulating before, and that's what I mean by these. You see these high volume down bars like that after a down move, and that's the potential. That's like a selling climax, and that's what's moved the price up. But oftentimes when you see these, you want to see them tested. You don't just jump in there straight away. See, it's come down and even pushed lower, even though there's buying in there. I think a lot of times it has to move sideways for them to accumulate and even go lower. And that's what's happened there. They've accumulated, then it's gone up, but it's still pretty. I mean, you've got heaps of supply areas. I mean, you've still got heaps of weak areas that have been resisting the price going back up over here. Plenty of supply, plenty of locked in buyers. It's been an extended downtrend. That's moved it sideways and across. So we've got this here. Now it could just as easily the same thing happen, where it moves. Even if they're bullish, you might get that mushroom bottom happening, which means it'll go lower before it goes higher. It might have to go lower still to go higher, even though that sort of signaled the start of accumulation there. So even if this is the start of accumulation, it can still go lower before it turns around to go higher again. So and again, if we zoom in on there, high volume down, it's up, but it's an up bar. We don't like high volume up bars, but anyway, it's pushed down and gone up, so there's buying in the bottom there. But the last bar's up thrust, hidden up thrust, so that's still weak, and we're in a downtrend. So I'll go to the daily on that one. There's your buying bar down there. Again, we've had this extended downtrend. It's got oversold. Buying's come in, it's closed high, so it must be buying, and especially since it's moved up. But then your volume's got lower. We've got no demand coming up here, up thrust on no demand, up near our top channel. So you could have shorted that. I mean, you could have shone short there, and that would have worked out. That was a test. It's come down now, and it's testing this high volume over here. Even though these have gone up on lighter volume, they're still quite high volume, but the next bar's closed lower on its bum. So that becomes a sign of weakness then. But it's narrow spread, and we're still above our buying, where our buying was. So we'll just have to keep an eye on it, I think. To see if we get really light volume coming into this bar. I mean, that could very well be a bottom. Who knows? That could be a bottom, but we can't just assume it, especially from the weekly, where it actually looks quite weak. And we're still, again, we're still in a downtrend till we're in an uptrend. There's no point buying if you're in a downtrend. I mean, if it's in a downtrend, then you short it in the right spot, of course. But I wouldn't be shorting it. I probably wouldn't be shorting it. You short on the retraces. You don't short. You don't try and chase the short down. If it gets in here, you don't want to be shorting in here until it breaks down through there, because you've got to respect the fact that there was actually buying in there, and a lot of it. And we're now actually looking for a possible change in trend there. We're looking for it, and we're saying if if we get really light volume coming down and then it responds by going up to form a lower high, if that happens, then this will probably change the trend and move up. But that's a if. We can't assume that will happen. So we just got to watch it at the moment. And so we have possible buying in there, but from the weekly and on the XJO and pretty much on everything, most things at the moment, we still have a lot of weakness. We have a lot of supply present in the marketplace and a lot of weakness still, and it could very possibly go lower still from here. So and everything is in a downtrend until it is in an uptrend, and at the moment we're still making lower highs and lower lows. We haven't confirmed a higher low yet on anything. So yeah, but anyway, that's me done. I'm a bit long, sorry about that, but that's me done for now.